Advent of Europeans in India. Introduction. The history of modern India begins with the arrival of Europeans on its shores. India, known for its wealth, spices, cotton textiles, and precious stones, was a coveted destination for traders across the world. For centuries, trade between India and Europe had been carried out through long and complex overland routes, passing through Central Asia, the Oxus Valley, Syria, and Egypt. These routes were controlled by intermediaries such as Arab traders and Ottoman Turks, who levied heavy duties. The result was that Indian goods became extremely expensive in Europe, even though they were in high demand. The quest for an alternative sea route to India led to one of the most significant developments of world history, the European Age of Exploration. The discovery of the Cape of Good Hope sea route by Vasco da Gama in 1498 revolutionized Indo-European trade. It paved the way for successive waves of European powers, the Portuguese, Dutch, English, French, and even the Danes, to establish trading relations with the Indian subcontinent. This essay will explore in depth the causes of European arrival, the strategies adopted by different powers, the rise of trading companies, and the political consequences of their advent, which ultimately set the stage for the colonization of India and the birth of modern Indian history. Causes of European advent. 1. Quest for trade and wealth. Europe in the 15th century had an insatiable demand for Asian commodities, particularly spices such as pepper, cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon, along with silk, cotton textiles, indigo, and precious stones. Spices were not just used for cooking, but also for preserving food and medicinal purposes. The scarcity of these goods in Europe created opportunities for immense profit. 2. Control of old trade routes. Before the 15th century, trade between India and Europe was dominated by Arab and Venetian merchants. The Ottoman conquest of Constantinople in 1453 disrupted the overland routes and further increased prices. Europeans, therefore, desperately sought direct maritime links to bypass these intermediaries. 3. Maritime innovations. The Renaissance brought technological progress in shipbuilding, navigation, and cartography. The invention of the magnetic compass, the astrolabe, and new ship designs like the caravel made long sea voyages feasible. 4. Religious and political motives. European monarchies sought prestige through overseas expansion. There was also a strong missionary zeal, particularly among the Portuguese, to spread Christianity. The papal bulls issued by the Pope in the late 15th century encouraged European monarchs to conquer and evangelize new lands. Arrival of the Portuguese. Vasco da Gama's voyage, 1498. The Portuguese were the pioneers in discovering the sea route to India. Under the patronage of Prince Henry the Navigator, Portugal had been exploring the African coast since the early 15th century. Finally, in 1498, Vasco da Gama reached Calicut, modern Kozhikode, on the Malabar coast. He was received by the Zamorin, the local ruler. Although Vasco da Gama faced hostility from Arab merchants who dominated the spice trade, his voyage marked the beginning of a new era. Establishment of Portuguese power. First phase, 1500 to 1530. The Portuguese initially obtained permission to set up a factory in Calicut, but tensions with Arab merchants led to violent clashes. Francisco de Almeida, the first governor, 1505 to 1509, introduced the Cartaz system, forcing Indian and Arab ships to obtain passes for trade. Afonso de Albuquerque, 1509 to 1515. Considered the real founder of Portuguese power in India, Albuquerque captured Goa in 1510, making it the capital of Portuguese possessions. He also established control over Malacca, 1511, and Hormuz, 1515, securing naval dominance in the Indian Ocean. Later expansion. Portuguese established trading centres at Diu, Daman, Bassein, Cochin, and other coastal towns. Decline of Portuguese power. Despite their early dominance, the Portuguese failed to consolidate. Their oppressive religious policies, piracy, and the rise of stronger European rivals weakened them. By the mid-17th century, their power in India was reduced mainly to Goa, Diu, and Daman. The Dutch in India. Rise of the Dutch East India Company, VOC. The Dutch, emerging as a powerful maritime nation after independence from Spain, founded the Dutch East India Company in 1602. Their focus was primarily on the lucrative spice trade of the East Indies, Indonesia. Dutch in India, they established trading posts in Masulipatam, 1605, Pulicat, 1610, later their headquarters, Surat, Nagapattinam, and Cochin. Their chief interest lay in spices, but they also traded in Indian textiles, which they exported to Southeast Asia in exchange for spices. Decline of Dutch power. The Dutch were more committed to their colonies in Indonesia than India. After their defeat by the English at the Battle of Colachel, 1741, at the hands of the ruler of Travancore, Marthandavarma, Dutch ambitions in India declined. Eventually, they lost most of their Indian possessions to the British. The English in India. Formation of the English East India Company. In 1600, Queen Elizabeth I granted a royal charter to the English East India Company, giving it monopoly rights to trade with the East. Early struggles. The English first set up a factory at Surat in 1613 after receiving permission from Mughal Emperor Jahangir. They gradually expanded to Masulipatam, Madras, Fort St. George 1639, Bombay 1668, gifted by the Portuguese, and Calcutta 1690. Growing influence. The English adopted a cautious policy, avoiding unnecessary wars and focusing on commerce. They developed close ties with Indian rulers, often playing one power against another. By the 18th century, they emerged as the most formidable European power in India. The French in India. Foundation of the French East India Company. The French East India Company was established in 1664 under Colbert, the finance minister of Louis XIV. Unlike the English, the French state played a stronger role in its operations. French settlements. The French established trading centres at Surat, Masulipatam, Pondicherry, 1674, Chandernagore, Mahe, and Karikal. Pondicherry became their chief settlement. Anglo-French rivalry. The French under Governor-General Dupleix tried to expand political power in South India during the Carnatic Wars, 1746-1763. Initially successful, they were eventually outmaneuvered by the English, particularly under Robert Clive. After the Treaty of Paris, 1763, French political ambitions ended, though they retained a few settlements like Pondicherry until 1954. The Danes in India. The Danes, though less significant, also participated. They established trading posts at Tranquebar, 1620, on the Coromandel coast and Serampore in Bengal. Their trade focused on textiles, and missionaries were active in education and printing. In 1845, they sold all their Indian possessions to the British. Comparative analysis of European powers. Portuguese, first to arrive and dominate, but declined due to narrow vision and rigid policies. Dutch, commercially successful but concentrated on Southeast Asia, hence lost ground in India. English, balanced trade with political ambitions, cautious and pragmatic, ultimately successful. French, strong challenge but lacked consistent strategy, eventually overshadowed by the English. Danes, minor players with limited influence. Consequences of European advent. 1. Transformation of trade. Indian textiles, spices, and handicrafts became global commodities. European demand reshaped local economies. 2. Political interference. European powers began as traders, but gradually interfered in local politics, supporting rival claimants to thrones and extracting privileges. 3. Military innovations. The introduction of advanced firearms, artillery, and naval power changed Indian warfare. 4. Cultural and religious impact. Missionaries introduced Christianity, Western education, and the printing press. Portuguese influence on language, architecture, and cuisine remains visible in Goa. 5. Foundation of British Empire. The defeat of rivals, French, Dutch, Portuguese, left the English dominant. The transformation of a trading company into a political power laid the foundation of the British Raj. Conclusion. The advent of Europeans in India was a turning point in Indian history. What began as a quest for spices and trade slowly transformed into political domination. The Portuguese pioneered maritime trade, the Dutch and Danes made their attempts, the French fought valiantly but faltered, and ultimately the English East India Company emerged triumphant. This phase was not merely about commerce. It reshaped India's political, economic, and cultural life. The subcontinent, once the world's leading exporter of textiles and spices, was gradually drawn into the web of European colonialism. Thus, the arrival of Europeans marked the beginning of modern Indian history, setting the stage for nearly 2 centuries of colonial rule and the profound transformations that followed. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.